Hi, this is Celeste from celestialreport.com. And if you have been to your local feed store, you probably know it's Chick Days. And I try and do an annual event, get out of the current events, the news, and do something that is fun and informative. And so, once again, I have Linda, the chicken whisperer, with me, and we are going to talk chickens today. So, welcome, Linda.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, how many chickens do you have?
I have 8 right now.
Okay. And could you just tell us a bio of your chicken history, just in brief?
Okay, I've had chickens for over 55 years and raised them pretty consistently and love them dearly. And I just read that they suggest that people, if they get chickens, pay attention to them because it's a very good thing for COVID and people if they have to stay home.
So I hear that you have a special guest uh, that you would like to show off today.
Well, I did. She ran off. She may come back in a minute.
Okay, chicken on the loose, chicken on the
Yes,
loose.
it's like, where did she go? Brett went to go see if he could get another one, but she ran off. Okay, go
Okay,
ahead.
okay. So I guess we'll just do the chicken when she decides she wants to come on here.
Okay.
So it's Chick Days this month, and I know that you don't usually do baby chicks, but I do baby chicks, so I'll just talk about those for a minute. So, what are the some of the tools that I use for to prepare for baby chicks? And I get one of those big Rubbermaid tubs, and you want to get a large compressed sawdust shavings for changing the bedding, and you want to do that once a day. And you want a plastic waterer. And I like to put mine on a 2x4 because those little baby chicks, even 1 day old chicks, they scratch around and they'll get sawdust in and then they can't drink. And so, unless you want to constantly be checking in on them, which if you have children, that's probably fine. But if you're busy like I am, I don't have time. And then a little bowl. I just use a ordinary washable bowl, and that put my chick starter in. You want about one. They come in 50-pound bags, medicated or non-medicated, and I get the non-medicated because I don't want all that garbage. I don't want their foundation to be toxic. And so I also get a heat lamp, and you can get a white heat lamp or a red heat lamp. If you have certain kinds of chickens that are aggressive, the red heat lamp works great for reducing aggression. But I typically, for my baby chicks, they're not aggressive. And so I get the white heat lamp. And then you need some sort of a dowel or stick to put down your most of the time you're going to buy your baby chicks, and they're going, whether you buy them at your feed store or you may order them from a hatchery online. And yes, you can do that, and they come in the mail. And it's so delightful to hear the little peeps, and you have their chicken condo all set up for them. And then you know, then they just go in there and you grow them. You can do that with turkeys, you can do it with guinea, game birds, other things too, but I have just done chickens. And the only other thing that you do is you make sure twice a day that they have water and that they have food, and that I also have some chicken wire because as they grow, they're going to spread their wings. And oftentimes, if you don't have some chicken wire over your Rubbermaid tub, then they will fly out and they will be perching on the dowel that you use for your heat lamp. And as they grow and they start feathering out, you can like put the heat lamp up. And one of the things that you have to deal with, and then we'll kind of get some chicken ideas from Linda, is pasty butt. And what is pasty butt? They kind of it's their rear end, and it kind of gets real pasty and hard. So what you have to do every day, if they do have pasty butt, is to take a warm washcloth and gently remove the crusted and hard feces that is coming out. And after about a week, they're fine. They're good to go. And they don't usually have pasty butt. It's just a big change from them coming out of an egg. Maybe they went to the feed store or in the mail. So there's a lot of transition until they get to your home that you have set up for them. And then once they get about, I don't know, I have a double-sided coop so that I have a junior section, and I section that off, and then they can run around and fly and do whatever they want. And then I will integrate them when they get a little bit older, because older chickens will pick on little chickens. So with that, now we've talked about baby chicks, and we're going to talk with Linda. You've done all sorts of crazy things with your chickens. What are the at least several of the most crazy and wild things you've done with your chickens?
Okay, well, last year I did get baby chicks around February, and they grew up, and I have taught them to come when I call them, but when they're out in the yard, I was sitting there watching Queen Elizabeth over in England when she watches the colors, the airplanes go by trooping the colors. So I decided that I would troop the colors with my chickens. So I stand at the back sliding glass door, and when I'm calling them to come in, I say, troop the colors, and here they come. They run all the way through the living room and through the dining room and up the stairs, and they'll come in. And a lot of times, most of the time, I have to bring them inside because the toxicity during the summer, because we have the fires, and they have to sit near the air purifiers because it's been in the red and yellow and orange and purple zone, and it's toxic for aviary. So if you're living in a polluted area like we are, you have chicken places outside, and you have to have chicken places inside, because aviary is the first to die of all animals, because they don't have lungs like regular people. They've got little sacs in there, and once they're destroyed, it takes a toll on their ability to survive.
So I know that you are the expert about having house chickens. So tell me a little bit about how to raise chickens indoors.
Well, the exciting thing is like when these toxic time comes, they come in, and I'll turn on the TV, and I'll turn on videos. They're very sensitive creatures. I have turned on tremors. They don't particularly like tremors because these giant worms come up, and they know what worms are, and they're eating the humans. So they actually turn around with their butts to the screen, and they won't watch it. However, we went to Game of Thrones one day, and they love Game of Thrones because they saw the queen flying on top of the dragon, and that was just wonderful. They were just fascinated by that. So I have a lot of interesting things, that they do. They have a snack bar where they can go up and eat, and I have some towels down and stuff, of course. And I try to keep them in as little as possible, but at times it just isn't, it won't be, or I can't have chickens. They will die.
Oh, so what type of food do you feed your chickens?
I actually, during the winter, what I do is I go get wheatgrass, or I go ahead and I go to the store and I buy some, and then wait a minute, here we go. We've got a chicken.
We got a live one.
We got a live one. I don't know how long she's going to stay, but I don't know. Can you see her?
Not so well.
There.
Oh, there she is. And what's her name?
This is Princess, and this is my son's favorite chicken. All right, take your bird. Oh, okay.
Okay, how old is Princess?
Well, I got her last February, so she is about a year old, a little over a year, and she's fully grown, and she is having eggs now. We're getting them probably every other day, and they're a fair size. They're not as big as the ones that you can get in the store, but that's just the way it is. They are more organic because I feed them organic grain. And I also have gone to giving them dried mealworms because we don't have a lot of bugs in our soil, and it has been pretty frozen and very dry here. So it's hard for them at this point because of the water content in the Reno area for them to dig too much. So they need to have some type of nutrition. So that's what I supplement with so they get, and then things are starting to bloom. And so they're starting to eat the grasses, but we also have a lot of toxicity. And I really need to stress this where we have, like, when the smoke comes in, the toxicity falls on the ground, and it's like we have silver stuff on the dirt. And so this is just part of life, that in Reno, I guess. But so it falls down and they start drinking the water. So I try to keep them with water, clean, purified water from per filters and stuff, and never let them drink the water from the faucet or anything. So I know I've gotten off the story on that, but I really needed to say that because we're living in a toxic society and we need to address that, because aviary, like I said, if you're going to have eggs and meat or whatever. So
what do you do if a chicken gets sick? I know we have a little bit different strategies on that. So what do you do?
Well, if they're sick, I give them a little vinegar in their water. That's number one. I give them colloidal silver a little bit. That's number two. And number three, activated charcoal, because it takes out any toxins and it helps their systems, and it just makes them feel better.
Tell them about cat food.
No, I don't feed them cat food. Sorry for telling me. Tell them about cat food. I don't.
When they used to not eat, we gave them cat food.
Oh, yes. When they didn't eat and they had some medical problems, I would try to get organic cat food, when there wasn't anything else available, so.
Okay. So do you change the feed differently from the summer to the winter months? Like in the winter, I make this oatmeal. It's organic oatmeal with maybe a little bit of honey, maybe a little bit of cayenne pepper. And if I've got some dried kale, I sprinkle it in. Do you do a different diet for winter and summer birds?
I primarily stick to the same thing, but right now I'm really pushing on the calcium because of them laying the eggs and everything. And I forgot to say that that's very important for their bones to be kept up with the calcium, as well, as the laying of eggs. And just for the viewers out there in the Reno area, we pretty much have run out of calcium. And so that's a grave concern. And one of the, I guess, places that our people here, that our producer, the people that we buy our seed from, they said that they are unable to, from this large corporate place, I don't remember where it's at, but anyway, they have been on back order. And so we aren't sure if we can get any more calcium and when we're going to get calcium. So I don't know if you can get it from Amazon, but I would very much look into that before you get into having chickens, because if you don't have some in reserve or don't buy it now, we don't know when there may be some.
Yeah, I was thankful that I just ordered a supply, but you can also, if you have goats or anything that lactates. It could
Mhm.
be a cow, goats, whatever, sheep. If you make your own cheese, the chickens love the goat cheese. Um, and goat milk. You can coagulate it a little bit, let it sit overnight. And so it's like yogurt
Mhm.
consistency. And so that's a good source of calcium. Kale is a very good source of calcium for the birds. So, do you ever do probiotics with your birds?
I haven't at this time, but any suggestions as far as that? Yeah, I guess I have put it in there at times, but I don't do it all the time.
Yeah, so what the probiotic would do is just the same as for a human gut. If they get the runs or something, if they
Mhm.
ate a little bit too much of one thing, then a probiotic dosage for a few days gets their microbiome back in shape again, and then they're off and running.
Yeah,
And so,
but I do give them oatmeal occasionally, and I have organic milk that comes from California. It's very expensive, like $8 a gallon, and I primarily go up there and get 2 gallons every few couple weeks, and then put it with the oatmeal. And so that is a variation that I do, to subsidize some of, the harder grains.
So what you get organic grain, what is in there that maybe chickens like? Or I know my chickens are very particular. I don't know how your chickens are, but do you know the different grains in your mix?
Well, I used to, but I don't. But I do know one thing that Modesto Mills in California, they keep putting these round balls, and I don't remember what they are, but my chickens, that's some type of seed, and they don't like it at all, and they won't even touch it. So I don't know whether it's partially genetically modified or not, but they just won't, they just don't like it. So I don't know about anybody else, but if, you know, yeah.
Yeah, I think my chickens don't like it either. And I get organic, it's Big Sky up in Montana, and it has
Hmm.
the same thing. I don't think it's pearl barley. I think it might be quinoa or an
Hmm.
ancient grain like that, but they're not too fond of it. They do like the sunflower seeds,
Oh,
and
yes. Yes. Oh,
they
yes.
they love sunflower seeds, and they love greens. That's one thing that your chickens, that is one of the things that I've noticed a difference through all the decades that I've had chickens, is that they are preferring greens over grains. And
Yes.
they'll go for the grain, but in the old days, it didn't used to be that way. I mean, chickens love the grain, and I mean, they'd eat a little bit of greens, but now it just is their bodies are craving those greens, and
If you
it's
have
good
a
for them.
second, she's sitting here eating this
Okay.
wheatgrass, and maybe you'll have to tell me if you can. Oops, she fell off. Hold on. If you can see her,
Okay.
um, hold on just a minute. Brett's going to assist me to try to get here, look, here. Can you see her?
I can see her.
There,
Oh,
she's just like, oh, yummies, mama. They just, I mean, they eat that up. Oh, they just go crazy over that stuff. It's expensive, but because we have not had any, rain, it's like it's not growing. And I've just started watering. So now I have certain places in the yard where I can pick up the weeds and stuff, and I go to the backyard and I throw them in there. But they need the greens. That's definitely their thing.
so you have actually traveled with a chicken. How do you travel with a chicken?
Well, um, actually, I have come from Reno to visit you, and I've taken my chickens in and had a cage in there. And of course, what I do is I put layers of towels or plastic in there so that you can change it out real, levels of it. So, with whatever in there, you can put leaves, you can put sawdust. Does kind of mess it up, but at least they can travel well. And usually they pretty much calm down. It's a long trip, and then you take them, when you take them back, and you just feed them, and they're just quiet. But they are very happy to get out when they get to where they go.
So you've traveled on an airplane with chicken?
I have, but it's been in the cargo hold. She actually, I had to have her have a bunch of shots, and I lived in around the Fort Hood, Texas. My husband was in the service, and she had to have a bunch of shots, and she had a cage, and so she was getting ready to have baby chicks, and I knew that the eggs would not survive. So what I did was I was pregnant with my daughter, 7 months. I took them and put them in my maternity pants in my front of my shirt and took them on the airplane and kept turning them. And then I got to the Seattle airport and I went to my destination and I put them back and gave them to my chicken. However, they did survive, but I think that just because of the travel, it didn't work out.
And you have special hotel accommodations for your chickens?
Well, I've smuggled them in. There was one, yes, I was in Daytona Beach, Florida, and I have a picture back in the 70s where I smuggled her in, and we were, I think, on the second or third floor, and her name was Coco, and I set her up there, and she was watching the ocean. And at that time, they let the race cars go back and forth, the Daytona race cars. They were driving up and down the beach, and then so I've been notorious for smuggling them through the elevator, and when they start talking, I just look like I don't know what's going on.
So have you ever used a chicken coop or a chicken tractor? Because most people are not going to raise their chickens in the house, although that is an alternative if there's restrictions in your particular zoning area. But have you ever used a coop or a chicken tractor?
I have a huge coop. It's like a $1,200 coop. It's a walk-in and it's got a bunch of levels and everything. And I've put plastic around it because we have the storms, the wind, the snow, and it protects them. But they don't tend to seem, unless they really have to, because they don't like wind a lot. They'd rather be outside. And so, and being natural birds, they just are out there. But when it gets too cold or anything, I put heat lamps out there and, their food, and make sure that the water is warm and everything. But I don't know anything about the tractors, but maybe you might. And so maybe you should, if you know something probably more than I do, then why don't you talk about it if you know that?
So there's a DIY that David and I did, and it's basically a little chicken yard with wheels, and you can move it around, and that way you can fertilize your garden area and maybe not have the chickens going rogue like my chickens right now. This very moment, I have two breeds of chickens. It started with these cinnamon queens. Don't ever get a cinnamon queen. They're rebels. We were talking about it just before we went on air. There's insurrection in my chickens, and they're now getting my nice fancy black and white chickens to be rebels, and they refuse to go into the coop at night. It's just so the chicken tractor kind of keeps them from doing destructive damage. I know one time I do live in Montana, and I was so excited because I had wildflower seeds that were about yay high, maybe a half an inch high, and I was envisioning these beautiful wildflowers. It was a wildflower mix, and I had to go to Missoula And then, of course, that's a all day trip. And I came home that night and the chickens had gotten in the garden and rototilled it all up. I was sick. Ah, I was so sick. So that's something and I just moved because I had a big chicken kill last year. Killed all but 5 of my chickens. I moved them up and made a coop off of the garden. Well, it's not turning out. I mean, last year was war in my garden because the chickens thought buffet time. This mom is making all this great stuff for us. And it was like, I got very little out of the garden last year. And it looks like things are ramping up again this year to be a, a year that is going to be challenging. Let's talk predators. What
Oh, I
types
was going to say something, Celeste. Remember when I was up there taking care of your house and I was telling you that there was a grizzly and they got into the chicken coop and around the electrical fence, and remember he destroyed your waterer. You can tell them about that. It's a dangerous thing.
Well, I have 300 grizzlies within 5 miles, and that's not even including the black bears, the wolves, the foxes, you name it. Yeah, I had one day I went out to go to farmer's market, and of course I feed my chickens, and I think I forgot to plug in the electric fence that day, and I come out and a whole wall of my chicken coop had been taken down by I'm not sure if it was a grizzly or a black bear, but it was definitely a bear because it took the whole wall. But what other types of predators would go after a chicken in the wild or in an urban environment?
Oh, you want me to tell you?
Mhm.
Oh, raccoons, skunks. We actually, surprisingly enough, 3 years ago, we had a mountain lion walking down, and I
Oh,
live in Reno. We live at the base of the Sierras, the very base of the Sierras, right near I-80 going up to Sacramento. And he was just walking down the street in front of the house, and it was like, oh, and the news crews came up and after it was gone and they were news crewing and telling the news. Yeah. And coyotes are very, I mean, they actually climb over the fence or jump over. They'll grab cats, they'll grab chickens. And that's the one reason my chickens haven't kind of been out yet, because I got it up at the end of my coop up at the last end of in the fall after all the smoke. And then the problem is that I didn't predator proof it. There was nothing on the bottom, and those predators can dig in like raccoons. They can get underneath there.
Hawks,
What?
hawks,
Foxes?
hawk,
What?
hawk.
Oh, hawks too. The hawks. Yeah.
yeah. So do
All
you
kinds of predatorial birds. Yeah. Here in Reno.
so what types of birds are predatorial? Do you know?
Well, the hawks, and I don't know if we have
Falcons, eagles,
falcons. We've have falcons,
eagles could be.
eagles. Yeah.
Do you have any trouble with like ravens or crows or anything like that?
No, but there was some type of predatorial bird that was sitting on our fence right above all my chickens and was just sitting there looking at them and sat there for several days, but has never come back. I mean, it was looking at them, but it didn't try to do anything. And I was questioning that. It's like, get out of here, don't bother my birds. But it never came back again. So that was a good thing.
So I've had a great horned owl, I've had a wolverine, and that night, put the chickens to bed, and David came home. He was working swing shift, and uh, he, for some reason, was checking the goats. He didn't usually do it at that time of the night because I had already put everybody to bed, but for some reason he did, and he said came up, got his gun, and there was a wolverine in the chicken coop. And so I'm in my nightgown and I go down because, it's the middle of the woods. So, I think I put a robe on, and so I'm standing outside and David is letting off all these rounds, and I mean, it was a lot of rounds. And all of a sudden, and wasn't thinking, because for me, it's like way past my bedtime. It was like 11 or 11:30. All of a sudden, I felt whizzing of the air by my legs. And I realized, oh my God, the bullets are going through the chicken coop wall, and David could shoot me. And I didn't think about it either. He didn't think about it because he had focused, I'm going to get this Wolverine. And he did eventually get it, but I don't know how many rounds. And I learned a valuable lesson that if somebody does have get in the coop and you're going to deal with that situation, a bystander should not be standing outside because it was a very solid coop, but the bullets still went through, and I don't know what kind of bullets he had in his gun at that time. So anyway, it was a learning lesson for both of us. Now this year, what I did is, so I have electric fence around my coop area, and I got old fishing net from eBay. And so you can get these huge fishing nets and you can drape them over the top of around your chicken coop and chicken yard. And that will prevent things like hawks and eagles from bothering your chickens. And my girlfriend, Aline in Washington, did that. And so I got the idea from her. I ordered my my commercial nets last year. They're about $35 or $40 a piece, but they're huge. And so you have to factor in how big of the area you're going to cover. But because I have a lot of predators and birds in this area, I thought that it's prudent, because basically my chickens are my friends. So now, what about squirrels and chipmunks and that? Do those bother chickens at all?
Oh goodness, we have Earl the squirrel.
Earl the squirrel.
And he's a pest, and last I knew, he had a girlfriend, and they dig under and they get in and start eating the chicken grain. And the thing that I'm starting to do is put hot pepper in there, because they don't really particularly like the hot pepper. It burns their mouths. So that is one thing. And I expect this summer to get, the.
Oh, Linda, you're muted. Okay, there you go.
Anyway, so that way he's not going to be able to dig under or get in, kind of, but I have to watch. But they do have, as my son was explaining to me, and he looked it up, that they carry a lot of, their carriers of diseases and stuff, and it isn't really good to have them around. And I've been ruminating on whether to go and try to either buy or see if animal control here can loan me a cage so that I can catch them and relocate them, and they can tell me where to relocate them, because I don't want to kill any animal. They have the right to live.
So let's talk nesting. What is your favorite, what are your girls' favorite nesting materials?
Here you go. So my girls have decided they have nests in their cage, but they like the maternity wards up in their cages upstairs. So they come and talk at the door and tell me they have to come in, and they run through the house, run up the stairs. They put themselves to bed. I curl a towel around and put a little piece of fur over the towel where it's soft. And they go right in and sit there. But they like to also have, this is funny, they like to have a cover over there, like a scarf that they can see through. They can see you, but you can't see them. And then they have the egg, but they have to have that scarf down. So it's quite interesting. It keeps me hopping, because I have to stay at home because I'm chemically sensitive. And so I do dote on my animals because I'm home all the time because of the toxicity and don't go too many places. So I go further than most people because they are my friends too. And they keep me very healthy because I'm very busy with them. And
So I basically use straw or alfalfa,
Mhm.
and I make sure that it is organic so that your chickens are not getting the herbicides, the glyphosate. If it's toxic to us, it's toxic to them, and they do eat a bit of it and they're scratching around. And basically, whatever goes into a chicken's mouth, if you are going to eat the eggs, or some people eat the chicken themselves, then you would get that in your body. So it's best to go all organic if you can. And like Linda said, you can use whatever you have on hand. If it was a grid down situation, from a towel to leaves to, whatever you have, but make sure that it is organic and not toxic. It doesn't have any toxicity to it. So, oh, so chickens have their personality. And what are the different personalities that you've seen in your chickens through the years?
Well, there's the aggressive ones, there's the shy ones, and the aggressive ones usually get the food. Um, and the smaller ones or the less aggressive ones don't get as much. So I monitor that and I make sure that the chickens that aren't getting what they need, that at night I put food in their beds, so that they can have the ability to gain weight, because it does take a toll on the egg count that they have. And if you want to maximize your egg count, can I go back for a minute? I also want to say something about raising chickens in the urban area. You do have, my chickens have a lot of issues, and the reason why they come in and lay the eggs is that we have a cat next door that is very predatory and likes to go and eat anything I put out there for them when it's not for them. And I can't stop this. And it's the neighbor's cat, and it's a large one, and it was hissing at me the other day. But we have to be cognizant that there are neighbors, and you can scare them off and everything and not hurt them. But my chickens get very disturbed because it even goes in their cage and pesters them in there. So I do have, that. And you, again, you have to be very cognizant of your neighbors and be adaptive. So if you want to ask me that other thing, but I just wanted to say that because there's the reason why they don't want to do it in their cage, because the cat comes in there.
Right, right. So what do you do? I know chickens get chicken mites. And
Hmm.
so what, in your estimation, are some of the things that you've tried that are successful in keeping mites off of chickens?
Well, I've run into this because I've had a very big problem with that. And what I've done is sometimes gotten to the point, because you have to kill them, of giving them baths, and it's not very good, but with dish soap and stuff. But then you put a little bit of essential oil in there, and then you feather dry them, because you use a hand dryer on each of them, but it's a long, tedious thing. The thing is that in the winter, you can't just put them out. Like here in the summer, you can put them out after you wash them because it's like 90 degrees or whatever. But now I've also resorted and found that if you put baking soda on the bottom of their, let's say their living quarters, and then you put a towel over and that's what I do. That's what they sit on, towels, because if you put in newspaper, it's toxic. The print goes
They
into
eat,
their,
yeah.
they eat it and it goes into their feet, and it kills them. It's toxicity. So I, use or the good soap that doesn't cause any problems, that's not chemical or smells or anything. And so I put it under there, and when the mice drop down, more or less also go down into that tray and then they smother. And you can do a couple doses on top of the chickens, but I wouldn't do more than that because it can destroy their feet, consistently. But so that's the one thing that I have been finding, every day I put a little bit, just a layer underneath. And you can put straw on top of it, but I don't want straw in my room. So that would be messy.
Yeah, so my girls get dust baths. I made when I redid but this new chicken coop that I did, I kept it purposefully a dust bath area, and they love it. It's dry even in winter when it was minus 45. They were out there dust bathing, and they just thought that that was the most wonderful thing. What do you use for leg mites?
I douse their feet with essential oils. It can be peppermint, water and peppermint, and just, submerge them up to, the feather line of their legs. And yeah, because that's not good because, they're like our little baby dinosaurs, and people don't realize that this is the closest to dinosaurs that we have. And actually, that's why I experiment with them, because it's like Jurassic Park. And it's like, I want to see what I can do and how to change them, and if they will attack me or not attack me if I do certain things. And it's a total living experiment with your own dinosaurs, only they're small. So that's why I sit there and I put different movies in so they can watch them and just experiment and see what their personalities will really do. I do have a chicken that I've had, and she's a service chicken, and she just became a service chicken, a legal service chicken. My doctor wrote, a thing stating that she was a service chicken because of my chemical sensitivity and because of the smoke. So I can take her with me, but I can't take her in certain places because they just won't allow it. But if she does tell me and I need to get home really quickly or whatever. And so, but she has known me for 7 years. So she's trained the other chickens to know about the toxicity and to also come in. And she also is a little brat. She is an Old English, and she's very small, much smaller than the other ones that I have. And sometimes I yell at her to come down and everything since she knows me, and she'll start, if she can't see me, she'll start screaming at me from the top of the stairs, and you can hear all over the house. It's like, Mom, where are you? And I'll yell at her and she'll come down, and she literally comes down. And I've got her trained to do a lot of things. She is very intelligent, and they do say that Old English, they're fighting birds. And when I introduced her to these other cochins that are much larger than her, they were getting aggressive with her, and she started going after them. She flew up with their claws, in the air, and grabbed their front feathers and pecked their face, not to hurt them, but to tell them, I'm the queen. I may be smaller than you. So there's a pecking order, and she kind of is the queen bee sometimes, most of it.
So for those of listeners and viewers that don't know what a pecking order is, what is a pecking order?
Well, the most dominant chicken usually is it, but my chicken has been here forever, so she figures that she rules the roost. And so she's let them know by pecking them on the head and running them off and of the food, and she'll eat first, and then she'll allow them, to come in, afterwards. And sometimes, because I have a rooster and he just wants to have friendly sessions with her, I have to keep him away from her when she eats, because he figures that's a good target time to get a girlfriend going on.
Yeah. So what about, I know chickens have a language. I watch my chickens, and if there is a predator or alarm, it was really interesting, especially when I had the goats and the dog. And, they put out this alarm, and then everybody was like, they'd stand still.
Mhm.
They were all listening, and
Yes.
it didn't matter what species, it was interspecies, and they paid attention. Their
Yes.
situational awareness was amazing. So
Yes.
can you tell us a little bit about chicken language?
Well, you know, they coo when, they talk to me when I'm handling my chickens because I have had them since babies. And they are so comfortable with me. When we watch TV, they line up on my leg and watch TV all the way down. Or if I'm not there, it's very interesting because they sit watching TV at the end of the bed with, of course, a sheet there in case they, poop or something. But the thing is that they'll sit there like they're very responsible for not crowding the other one, and it'll be like 4 inches apart or 5 inches, and you can see them in increments, apart. And at some point, if we go on and do this, the next time, I can send you some pictures and maybe you can put them up and I can show you them watching TV and watching all these wonderful things that are going on. And
So
they
it,
coo, they do
as
talk to you.
so when they coo, they're happy. What do they
Yes,
do? What do they do if you're doing something that they don't like?
they start screeching at you. That my son is doing it. Yeah. If they're telling you, oh boy, you're in trouble.
So
And I allow them to do that. I allow them to say what they need to say. And then, yeah.
do they have an inquisitive, like if they're really studying something, do they make a noise or are they quiet?
Well, it just depends on what they're studying, if it's friend or foe. And they have different lenses in their eyes. So, I've got one. Well, I have two aggressive girls, and one of them was Princess, the one that you saw, and one is called Rexy, and that's because she reminds me of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. When I first got her, her eyes were so mean. I thought, oh, I'm going to hate this chicken. I don't hate chickens, but they were so intent on hunting. And interestingly enough, they are hunting lizards down there, and because they're larger birds, they were downing whole lizards down here, chasing them down just like a Jurassic Park, and they were watching them, and it was, whoa, very interesting.
So if I wanted to give a chicken a treat, what would I give a chicken?
Well, all I can say, the biggest treat that they have is the grass. I can show them that wheatgrass from a mile away and they come running, all of them, goody, and they're like, shing, they're there. That is the
food wise, what would be toxic to a chicken? Are there some things you should feed a chicken and some things you should not feed a chicken?
Well, they don't like avocado. Well, they're not supposed to give them avocados, avocado peels, rainwater, sugar. You're not supposed. Sometimes I let them have a little bit of sugar in their brown sugar with oatmeal, but just a little bit. Not that I really onions and stuff. There's certain things, and sometimes they taste them and they won't eat it. They'll just throw it down, if they don't like it. But for the most part, I'm starting to learn what to feed them in the garden of in the fall and stuff, so I can throw it in there with them. And people need to be careful about that. They need to look it up before they start throwing things in there, because a lot of that stuff, the leaves, can be toxic. The flowers, though, like the squash, pumpkin and stuff, are edible for them, and it may be a treat. And I have a huge lilac bush that's getting ready to have lilacs. And when I had the babies last year, I was sitting in my bedroom and we were watching movies, but I had some twigs and everything, and I was trying to take it off to make lilac honey and put the lilac little flowers in there. Oh, the baby chicks were going after them. They were just diving down on them. So they remembered them. And so I had some fake flowers that were purple, and they tore them down thinking that they were the lilacs. They were plastic and they just dumped them off. But it was like, Mom, where are the lilacs?
Yeah, speaking of lilacs, I out of my freezer, I make a lilac and huckleberry cheesecake. And so Miss Zippy and I had huckleberry and lilac cheesecake. And it's almost time for me to make those cheesecakes again because I'm probably a couple weeks behind you, but the buds are there. And if the weather cooperates, I will have a new batch of lilac and huckleberry cheesecake. So it's a delightful combination. And no, I don't give the cheesecake to the chickens. I mean, back when I had goats, I would give cheese, because sometimes you don't use all your cheese or yogurt or your sour cream, and they really would gobble it up. My chickens like raisins. They're big raisin fans for treats. I think, I don't know if they had to choose between a raisin and a sunflower seed. I'm not sure which. I
Yeah.
think my girls would probably pick raisins. I think.
Grapes are good. They like green grapes. I've tried them on the green grapes. It's like, oh, this is good, Mom. I haven't tried the raisins, but I'll have to.
Yeah, raisins, especially in the oatmeal with the cayenne pepper in the winter. When it because the cayenne pepper warms the chicken. And I
Right.
actually got that from an 1880 cookbook, Dr. Chase's. And I thought, no way, will these birds eat this? And so I made a pie tin full of it my
Mhm.
first time. And I dolled it up with the raisins and the honey and the whole 10 yards. And they wolfed it down so fast. And then they were warm and content. They get cold like we do, especially in the fall when, everybody's used to the hot weather, then it's changing to the cold. It's a good way for your bird, but also I make creams for elderly people, and I put cayenne pepper in there or a cayenne tincture, and you put it on somebody who's maybe sedentary, sitting around most of the time, and it warms their feet. And so it's a good thing. Now, do you give your chickens any sea products like kelp or anything like that?
I don't, because I don't want to do the kelp and I don't want to do fish because of the toxicity and Fukushima and everything. I try not to get any fish. We have a lot of, I guess down in Vegas, they're doing salmon, or I think salmon and lobster or whatever. I don't know. And they're selling it and it's modified. And so you've got to be very careful. I think they have it at Costco too, modified stuff. And so I'm very skeptical, shall we say, of kelp and all that, unless you get it even from the North Seas. They're finding out all over. And I, just like you, I watch all the news feeds and I see that they're showing that there's plastic and pollution up in the North Pole and everything. And I guess the camels were over in the Sahara Desert. They were eating, and they found 200 pounds, I guess, of plastic sacks in their stomachs, and they were starving to death. So it's everywhere. And so I'm just trying to be cognizant of whatever I can do. I also want to suggest to everybody, if you do get chickens or do have chickens, that you store up, because we down in the Reno area don't have Montana and the wheat up there that they have, and it dries up because we get it from California. And so we have actually in the Reno area, pretty much run out at certain times of that. And eggs, during the pandemic, we didn't really have any eggs. And I said, aha, I'm going to get those chickens. And I did. And now they're doing their thing. So whether other people get eggs or not, I don't care anymore, because I have my own chickens. And I did set up with a drum of enough to take us through the dry periods.
So what is the typical lifespan of a chicken?
Well, when I first moved, it's very sad. When I first moved to the Reno area, I had a 16-year-old rooster named Waddle Chops, that my grandchildren, all of them still remember. Um, and they used to live anywhere between 10 and 16 years. The problem now is the toxicity of Reno. I'm not sure how long my chickens are going to live because it's highly toxic, because Tesla came in and they do batteries, and a bunch of other people are coming in, and the pollution levels just seem to just keep skyrocketing. And I have thought about even leaving and talk to my children about it, because it's like I don't like it here at all.
Yeah. I don't know because my chickens kind of, I have some old birds that are past their prime. They're not laying anymore. But it seems that the predators, I have like just so many predators here that I lose a few chickens just because I live in the wilderness, and that's just the
Yes.
way that it is. So it seems that they go for the frail ones, first, So um what is your most funny story about chickens?
Well, here's a nice one. So when I was living with my husband in Fort Hood, Texas, we decided that we were going to go tornado chasing. And of course, I was 19 years old and he was 19, 20 years old. And so we loaded up our newborn daughter and we put our chicken at the top of our bassinet in the back. And we went trooping along around Fort Hood, on the outskirts of Fort Hood. And we were chasing this tornado. And this big truck came up in back of us. And we were trying to outrun the tornado, and the truck was in back of us, and he was trying to outrun the tornado, and this truck started coming up on top of our back of our car. And there were wheel marks, but we got out of his way. We hurried, all of us, we scooted as fast as we could. We let the tornado go by, but that's just youth and stupidity. I would never do that now, but that was just another one of my fun times. I just, it's creative, just traveling and having fun with chickens. You can do whatever. The other one is if you're traveling with the chicken, especially female, as you're going along, you stop at the rest stops and you go up to these campers and you offer them an egg or two, because you're traveling here. And they've been delighted. Well, where did you get that from my chicken in the car? So they have a great tale to tell when they get home. We got offered it, an egg. And another one is that when we carried our chicken one time and we stopped at this gas station and the guy was filling our car and he's, "You have a chicken in there, And it's like, yes. Now I've seen people with chimpanzees, and I've seen them with guinea pigs, and I've seen them with all sorts of stuff, but I've never seen a traveling chicken." And in those days, back in the 70s, we didn't have any air conditioning. So we had to put our cocoa chicken on ice. We made an ice, because they get too hot and they'll die. We were not feeling so hot, but the chicken was nice and cool going through the desert in Arizona and Palm Springs and everything to our destination.
So speaking of heat and temperature, what is too hot and cold for a chicken? And also humidity. Do they like it dry? Do they like it really moist like the tropics? What is best for chicken?
My chickens don't particularly care for a whole lot of humidity. We don't have a whole lot of humidity here because we're high desert. They don't particularly care for the rain, but the heat they don't like. When it gets up over 100, they get uncomfortable, and sometimes they, because of the smoke, and that's the time where we have the fires and the smoke and the heat. They come to the door and I just let them in and they come in and watch TV. It's just the way of life here. Unless you don't want chickens. I mean, they'll last for a couple of years, but you don't want to see your friends suffocating out there, which is what they do. It burns their nose, it burns their lungs, and it hurts them. And you can watch them just literally die in front of you. And that's why I'm trying to not have that happen.
What about cold? What temperatures can chickens endure?
Well, I know that your chickens endure a lot more than mine. Mine are little wusses. Mine, when it gets to 30, I put, because they've been in the house at night with the heater on, I don't want it to be, to where they get pneumonia when I put them in the cage. So I have 2 heat lamps out there, and then they cool down, and it, gradually I can turn it off and they know it's cold, and they can go out then, when it, because it's just so bitterly cold, like, because we're in the mountains, and they're not quite used to that. And you also have to, know, we were discussing, they have their winter feathers and their summer feathers, and you have to be ready for the intermediate of that. If they haven't gotten their winter feathers in, you could, it's just not a good thing. You've got to be real careful of that. And in the summer, you got to make sure that, that everything's on track and they get their summer feathers, and get rid of their winter feathers. So those are considerations always.
Yeah, so my girls, of course, they can endure -50 with
Yeah.
a heat lamp or two. And I do have a heated water so that they have fresh water all the time and they don't have to break ice. I do know that the wattles on top and the combs, if you're going to raise chickens in a really cold and brutal environment,
Yeah.
what you want to do is get the lower combs and lower wattles, because otherwise they can get frost. The ones with the big wattles and combs, it gets frostbite and they turn black. That does not hurt the
Yes.
chicken, but it's unsightly and it hurts them. And after a while it doesn't hurt, but in the beginning. So it's best to pick breeds if you are like in Alaska or in the Rocky Mountains, to get those shorter combed birds. And it will tell you, they tell you in the description a little bit about the bird, their personality, and if they are short wattled and all of this, and if they're cold tolerant or not. So the most hatcheries you can look up, there's poultry clubs. I don't know, have you ever showed your chickens? I never have shown my chickens. I don't think I would do it these days.
No, they suggest you don't, because when you do that, you don't know where else they have been. And I watched something, we have a cousin in Ohio, and I was watching something on them showing a huge US show there, and they were stating that it's not really a good idea to show your chickens because they can come in contact with other chickens that have been at other shows that may have something. And so, and they also were talking about, and I think this is a very necessary thing that I'm not sure if I emailed you or not, in the same program, that chickens are becoming extinct because they've interbred them so much that the genes aren't strong genes of, say in natural chickens, that are running in the wild. They just, like these places that I got mine from on the East Coast, so they're weakened more, I would say. So they were telling people that if you have a chicken of a certain species, get other chickens of that species to make your species stronger, instead of interbreeding a lot, is what they suggested. And that's something that is what I heard. I also, while we're touching base on this, it is probably imperative, if you're dealing with chickens, more than a couple of them or not, call around and see if you can find a vet that is an aviary vet, so that if something does happen, that you know that they are sensitive to the animal. I have a veterinarian who has had to put down a few of my chickens because of the smoke in this area and have damaged their lungs. And I've had to put them in antibiotics, and they all got it at the same time. That's why my chickens, it's very scary to have them outside, because you don't know when it's going to be at purple zone in the middle of the night or red zone. And I never know. And that's another reason why they have to come in, because I can't see when it comes and I'm asleep. So it's a very dangerous thing. But in other places, they don't have what is going on here. But I would find a vet that is sensitive and knows aviary, and will be able to help you with any issues that you may have with it. And it's good, because even if you have a couple, if one gets it, something else may get it, so another of your chickens, and it may go through your flock.
Yeah. So one time the chickens knocked down the heat lamp, and I was doing a deep bedding system where you just do a really deep bed in the winter. I won't do that again, because in the spring you have to shovel all that deep bed out, which takes a long time for your spring cleaning for your coop. And I said, it's a good idea, but I don't like it. But anyway, they had dropped the heat lamp, and it was smoldering. So I, of course, because of the predators, have to shut the hatch door, and it was smoky, and all the birds were okay. They were a little irritated, their respiratory system, their eyes, and a little sneezing. But one was really having some tough time, and I do my own vetting. But I have an asthma inhaler for emergency situations. And it was an old asthma inhaler. And I just came running up and I got the asthma inhaler, and I didn't put it up to of course, her mouth was open. And so I just maybe an inch away and did the asthma inhaler. And she was just fine after that. It cleared her up. And in emergency situations, and living so far from any type of veterinary, you kind of have to be self-sufficient. And so you can use an asthma inhaler, probably not advisable in all circumstances, but I love my birds just like you love your birds. And so I didn't want to see her suffer, and I wanted her to live through. And she was really struggling. Her comb had turned blue. And so you can tell that they're having respiratory or cardiac when their combs start turning blue. And if they're listless in your arms, or they're just kind of sitting. So there are what?
Sideways, sitting sideways is like
sitting sideways. Yeah. Yeah. So I think my favorite thing to do with my chickens is not when they're in the garden, like the rebels that are out there right now, even as I speak, but I just love sitting out on a nice May or June day, watching them scratch the earth, and it's very rhythmic. When their chickens are happy, they're just kind of cooing or silent, and they're just scratch. It's interesting when you raise something over the years. Originally, my chickens always scratched, and then I would say for maybe 10 years, the chickens, they had tweaked the poultry supply, and they forgot what scratching was all about. But now I'm noticing, but I'm also trying different breeds now, that they're back to scratching, and it just comes natural for them. And I think that's my favorite thing, because I don't care how tense you are or stressed out when you're watching your chickens, it's almost hypnotic, just watching them scratch. And you just kind of go into the zone. And I love it. I love it.
And
Leslie?
yes, dust bathing is important. Mine do dust bathe too, but yeah, I think the squirrel brought them in, but because they didn't have them before and he got into the cage. So that's where I think they got them from. But
So any parting thoughts on raising chickens or favorite stories before we go our separate ways?
well, again, let me say that I read this article about the pandemic and having to stay home. And if people do go out and want to get chickens, it's for keeps. It's not because it's a temporary thing. It's because they're little souls and each one of them is different. And you can accept them that they're going to be friendly or not friendly to you, but they're still part of a flock and they meet each other's demands. And when one sounds a whistle, about something that's going on, they're a little cheeping and there's a predator, there is a reason for each one of them have their own part in that flock to take care of it. And they're all watching. If one's not watching, the others are watching, even if it's not the rooster at the time. They do tell them to get under cover or stand still. One of the two, depending on where it is, whether it's in the sky or whether it's on the ground. And so it's a healthier thing to have more than a few so that way they can have friends and you can go about your day and they can go about their day and that they're being taken care of by their family.
Oh, I forgot we didn't talk about eggs. So chickens can lay different colored eggs. So they can do pink, green, light brown, dark brown, garnet, speckled. You can get the egg that you want. And if you raise your own chickens, you're going to get that bright orange yolk, that old fashioned yolk that's just filled with vitamins and nutrients for your body. Cholesterol is not an issue with your homegrown chicken. And they have figured out the commercial people, commercial chicken growers, they actually have learned how to put a dye in the yolk of the store-bought white eggs. Yes, you can get white eggs if you want. And that's just gross to me. I mean, I like that, like when my girls were all cooped up for the winter, of course, the yolk, even though you feed them pretty good, it just gets paler just because they don't have the variety. But now that the girls are out, right now I've got snow and sun. So the girls are out, and yesterday I had eggs and just that bright orange yolk. And also, I think we need to talk about, and I don't know about, you don't have as many chickens as I have. I've got 35. So I've got brooders, and a brooder is a hen that will sit on eggs. She can sit on her own eggs, but she can also sit on everybody else's eggs. And sometimes it gets almost comical because there's so many eggs and the best thing to do is to mark if you want to keep track. Do a modest amount, maybe 6 eggs, depending on the size of the chicken, at the most 8 for a larger, and then make sure you mark them. And that way you'll know which eggs to pick around the sides, because they do turn them. And a brooder will sit on those eggs and she will not eat, she will not drink, unless maybe if you bring her some food or water, she might. I've had chickens that have partaken of food and water while they brood, and others that just absolutely won't. And at the end, they just naturally, let's say the eggs aren't viable, let's say you don't have a rooster, then she just automatically pops off the egg someday. And once that mom pops off the eggs, then those eggs are not viable if she's left them for any amount of time. So dispose of those eggs. One other thing that I think that we should relay to people is that um, uh, eggs that are hatched out by the mom and where the mom raises those baby chicks, it's so much easier. You don't have to go through any of the thing that we started this program with the sawdust and the heat lamp and the whole 10 yards, because the mom will take care of them. And moms are so good in most cases. They're just delightful, they're loving, and they will watch and train. The mother will coo to the baby chicks and say either here's food or stay away or whatever, and it makes your life a whole lot easier if you have a mama chicken hatching out the eggs. And I've never done the incubator thing. I don't think you've done the incubator thing either.
No.
So yes, you can do that. But once again, then you become the mama hen. So
I have a happy thing that I would like to add that may that I do to thank people for certain things. I have a friend who's going to come over because I don't have a truck right now to get my hay. I'm going to give her a dozen eggs. I give my mailman eggs in the mailbox and stick the flag up, and he's excited because nobody else cares about mailman. They go through the smoke and the rain and the snow, and it thanks them. I give my banker 6 eggs, and she's very appreciative, and people watch me giving her eggs when I go up to the teller, here you go, here's your eggs. They're like, oh, you get eggs for it. It's just fun to surprise people.
right, that's how we keep our humanity, those loving acts of kindness. And I do sell my chicken eggs to some customers, and they are organic, so I can get a premium for that. So in the old pioneer days, that's eggs and butter were ways that pioneer women could make a little money to buy this or that. It's not a lot, but in hard times, it covers costs and maybe could get you a luxury that you could not afford any other way. So anyway, I just want to thank you, Chicken Whisperer, and I look forward to new stories and new tips. And if people have questions about chickens, is it all right if I forward them on to you so that you can answer those questions?
Sure. And I want to thank you for having me today again.
Well, it's been a delight, and it's much nicer talking chickens than all the news that's surrounding us, because chickens just have this calming effect on everyone who raises them, unless you're a big commercial grower. So
I hope they got a few chuckles out of all, us bantering back and forth with stories about the wondrous explorations of our lives with chickens.
yes, yes. So have a blessed day, Linda, and thank you so much for being on the Celestial Report.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day. Bye.